It's mid-November in our cut flower garden here next to the canal, and you might be sitting with your feet up at this point, but I can assure you, if you are growing flowers and you're not sitting with your feet up, then you're not alone. So I'm going to share with you the things that I'm still doing, even in mid-November, to grow flowers successionally for spring. At the end of autumn coming into winter, it's a brilliant time to look at your beds and decide what you want to do with them. Now, in the beds behind me, I've had dahlias in them for a couple of years now, and I've decided to ring the changes. So I've actually planted them with bulbs and Aeromuris, and I needed to get that Aeromuris in. They don't sit well in a box, but I'll say to you a bit later about how I time my bulbs. But Aeromuris, if you're growing it, as soon as it arrives, make sure you plant it out. So this is where I had the sweet peas last year, and I also had a row of Nigella. So this time of year you actually don't need to sow very much at all of hardy annuals, because my garden just sows it for me because I'm growing in open soil beds. I've even got some self-seeded sweet peas in this bed. So have a look out for what seedlings are actually coming up in your beds, because you might not need to bother to sow a seed at all. So you might need to take some elaborate methods to protect your bulbs at this time of year. We've got a marauding pair of squirrels. We've also got some four-legged friends. We're right next to the canal. And when the water levels rise, so do the water rats, truthfully. So we put mesh on the beds and brick it down, and then when the shoots start to come through, then we take off the mesh. But after you've spent all your money on tulips, and that's what's in here, and you discover that they've all been eaten by the local wildlife, that is the time when you take the effort to put something to protect your beds on. Now, I plant them quite deep as well, so they've really got to dig with them. I don't put them in crates or anything like that, because it's just like Meals on Wheels, I think. But you might not have that problem, and if you don't, brilliant, but I do, and that's what I need to do. So it's part of the job. Make sure that you do it. You might be like me and be over ambitious in ordering sacks of bulbs, because I just love spring and I always get really over enthusiastic about the bulb orders. Do you know what? It can feel absolutely overwhelming, box after box stacked around you. But here's what I have learned over the years in terms of how to manage the bulbs. These are paper whites. When they arrived, they were top of the list to go in. Why? Because they're going to be flowering first, and you can already see that the buds are flowering or coming into flower. Now, we have Christmas early here, so they went in immediately. But have a look at the varieties that you've bought and have a look at when they actually do flower. So I would plant my early flowering ones, they would be towards the top of the list, and the later flowering ones would be towards the bottom. I've actually planted daffodils in December and tulips in January, and they've been absolutely fine. It's actually a great way to do some succession for your bulbs. I mean, it doesn't work all the time. I think the most robust way of getting succession for bulbs is the location. So in the south or the north, in shade or in full sun, that's the way that I get my bulbs to kind of spread out a bit. But it doesn't always work, because the seasons and the weather for tulips in particular can be quite tricky. But if you've got loads of boxes of bulbs, the top tip is to keep them well, keep them dry, keep them unmoistured, so that the reason they'll go off is if they are too wet and too damp, and so they'll start to shoot before you even get them in the ground, and then you're in danger of damaging the tip. So keep them well, and then you can spread out the planting. You may have been sprouting your anemones, and I've got another video where I share my top tips on doing that somewhere. But if you haven't, worry not, because there's still a moment to do it. I'm still pre-sprouting my anemones and my ranunculus, because I think it's a good way to, again, get succession of cut flowers. I don't want them to flower all at once. So these are doing really well. The roots are starting to appear at the bottom of the tray, so I will put them outside. Now I don't have any polytunnels. I have low tunnels that I will put them in because they do need some protection over winter. But the advantage with that is that I will have as early a flower as I possibly can for my anemones, and then I'll have some more to follow up on that. So there is an advantage sometimes with, if you haven't pre-sprouted anything just yet, to just do it now. So here's some ranunculus that I pre-sprouted 3 weeks ago, well probably 4 weeks ago, and here's some I pre-sprouted a couple of weeks ago, so you can see the difference. They ultimately do catch up a bit, but I think what makes the difference to me as a single girl cut flower grower is that I don't have to then process hundreds of corms, and there's only me. So I kind of split the job and do one set at one time and then another set at another, and that way I can manage it better. And I mentioned about prioritising and conflicts when you're a flower grower and a florist. So at this time of year, many of us are doing classes, and I actually run live online classes, and we're doing a couple next week and the week after. So today I had a choice. I could be outside mulching and covering my beds, which is something that I need to do, but also I needed to prepare my bases for my class tomorrow so that I'm all ready and done for the class. So I think it's really, always you will have these conflicts of time, but what I mentioned earlier was about prioritizing. So it's no good me having a perfectly mulched bed out here but I'm not quite ready for my class tomorrow. So you do have to look at what you need to do, focus on that, and actually just try and forget that you've got maybe a few jobs piling up there, and just get to it when you can get to it. So I've talked about mulching your beds and how important that is to keep down the weeds that you don't want, and I've for open beds, and the advantage with that is I can just pick seedlings that I haven't even sown out of the soil, which is really great. Here though, I've sown a green manure and I am not 100% happy with it. It doesn't appear to have covered all the bed. I think this is going to be a little bit of a failure, if I'm honest, because I can already see grasses and other things coming up where I don't really want them. So I think I might have another think about this, move this is Felicia, down to another bed, because it's actually a really nice flower for the spring, and then just mulch this and try again next year. And if you've tried a green manure, maybe I planted it too late or I didn't sow the seeds thick enough. So if you've got any experience, leave me a comment, and I'd really appreciate it. If you sowed some sweet peas in September, they may very well look like this. And what I do is I pinch out the tops so that I start to get some lateral sides. So I'm basically getting more branches for my one stem of sweet peas, and it also means the stem does thicken up, and so that's what gives you more and more flowers. But if you haven't grown your sweet peas, or they've all been eaten by the local mice population, then fret not, because another excellent opportunity is going to come in January. And if you subscribe, I'll be sharing what I'm doing in January and the specific, very special varieties of sweet peas that I will grow at that point. So thanks for watching. See you again soon.